Hello, and welcome to Civic Leaders. I'm Bert Lowry, Market Intelligence Officer at Springbrook Software. On this special Attracting Talent episode, we're talking with Palo Alto CIO Jonathan Reichental. He's been named one of GovTech's top 25 doers, dreamers, and drivers. Here we'll be discussing the radical changes he's implemented in the nation's tech hub. Thanks for joining us, Jonathan. Every community today faces the challenge of competing with the private sector for talent. How can managers set course on an effective recruiting strategy?
I'm glad you're asking me this question because I have a selfish desire to answer it because we're hiring people now and we'll continue to hire people. But I also want other agencies to think about hiring in a completely different way. So we probably have the worst hiring environment in America in terms of hiring technical people. It's a candy shop for technologists. I mean, the best jobs are here, and people have choices. The sooner we realize that we're not competing with Facebook, we're not competing with Google, the sooner you realize that, the better. And in your particular government context and city, the sooner you realize, that you're not trying to track people through salary or global challenges. That's an important thing. But you've got to realize, what are your strengths? What are you selling to recruits?
Your changes to the city's recruitment strategy saw incredible positive return. Could you explain what happened?
Now, when the city of Palo Alto historically, before my time, would have an opening for a technical person, we wouldn't get many respondents, because and here's the reason. The job opening sounded like didn't sound necessarily glamorous or didn't really describe what it means to work in technology government. Just listed responsibilities, database administrator or a help desk technician. You'll solve tickets. So it didn't tell the story sufficiently. So we would barely get a handful of applicants. Today, when the city of Palo Alto has an IT opening, we get over 200 qualified applicants. I mean, we're overwhelmed with applicants. And the question is, so how do you do that? How do you go from a small handful to having people really be excited about the work and the opportunity? Well, you got to create a compelling vision. I mean, that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, is convincing people internally and in the marketplace that cities are a really important place to work. And as a technologist with technology at the center of our work today, you can really have a big impact on that work and on the people of that community. People need to know that, and you've got to be sincere about it. It's not an empty promise. When you've got a small team and you come in and you have responsibility for a system or a process, you're going to have some impact.
Beyond process, what other changes have you implemented to help modernize the IT department's work environment?
I came to the city of Palo Alto 3.5 years ago, and I walked into the IT department and I knew it had potential. I really did. I would never have done this if I didn't think we could do great things together. But the environment wasn't necessarily conducive to great work. It was a little dark. It was, a lot of my team were in cubicles and offices, and they weren't really collaborating. So I started to think about, how will we be able to create an environment over time that allows us to work closely together, that's a bright and inviting environment. So I talked to the city manager and said, what are your thoughts on modernization here? By the way, the city hall in Palo Alto hadn't been really refurbished since the 70s. So it was time for some improvements. So this is where persistence and patience really pays off. It didn't happen overnight. It took a bit of time. In fact, it took a couple of years, where we could really realize a vision for what does an IT department physically look like at a city hall or in a facility at a city. And I didn't want cubicles and sort of a more traditional look. I really wanted to have an environment that reflected the community that we served. When we would go out and meet at startups, that's what we would see. These big open environments, people working at just open desks, and just sitting with each other. They had a lot of technology at their disposal, multiple screens, laptops, tablets, big smart boards. And well, I was modest in our ambition. I wasn't going to spend a lot of money on this, but I was going to try to get the right mix. And so we really set out to build a really nice physical environment for our IT department. As we progressed and we were making I was seeing the results of this, I began to think about, well, how can we even push this further? What are we really creating here? And it occurred to me we were creating a center for civic technology, primarily for us as a team, but for others too, others to visit, to work with us. We have this track record now of collaborating with a whole range of stakeholders, some startups and academics and others. And historically, it's been quite improvised. We didn't formalize it. And so I felt here we have a physical environment, a destination where people can come, collaborate with us, understand city problems, a place where we can bring in city leaders who are experts on transportation or on energy or sustainability. And so was born this idea of this sort of Civic Technology Center, CTC. And it was a case, like I talked about earlier, of where I had to begin to tell that story and convince the city manager and convince his colleagues and my colleagues and my team of what we were doing. Like, what was this? Yet another crazy idea from Jonathan about our work, and it takes time. I have to say, the open workspace was not embraced. Today, it's embraced. People love it. They love it.
With perceptions that public work is slow-moving and lacking in innovation, how can hiring managers help dispel these myths?
So cities aren't necessarily, at the forefront of people's imaginations when they think about a great place to innovate. But I'm here to set the record straight. You can apply the best computer science in a city setting, and the problems are hard, they're complex, they really impact people's lives on a day-to-day basis. People need to understand what it means to work for a government. That we're on the precipice of the development of smart cities. And then people need to understand the demands are complex. Everything from transportation challenges and energy challenges, and smart buildings and creating healthy cities. People need to understand this is really interesting. These are tough problems to solve, and you can be part of the solution.
During the recruiting process, how can communities work their strengths while also providing realistic expectations for both themselves and the candidate?
So it's a number of things, and you have to work hard at it. We don't try to compete on salary. We have some good benefits, but not on salary. But the salary is not insignificant. I mean, you get paid well. And then lastly, and this is really a key point that is missed by a lot of cities. You can't be selling the retirement package to a 20-year-old or even a 30-year-old. If you're going to be working in government today, making a real difference, and know that there's a lot of temptation and there's a lot of other things you can do in the marketplace, you got to be telling people that, come for 5 years, come make a difference, and then when you're ready to leave, we'll help you. We'll help you move on to the next career. And this is like very new thinking for government.
Last question, Jonathan. Are communities undervaluing what they can truly offer in terms of demanding, interesting, and rewarding work? What can be done?
When I have a person, perhaps later in their career, come to me and they interview and they tell me, and I ask them, why are you interested in what we're doing here and interested in government? And this happens less and less. I've had people come and say, well, I want to, I want to sort of downsize my career. I don't want to work as hard. I want something that's predictable. And then I want the retirement. That's not really going to work on me. That's not what I'm selling. You're probably at a disadvantage if you come into the interview with some of that sentiment, because you don't realize that this is high performance and this is like working at a startup. So this is an area of government we have to radically change. And way beyond Silicon Valley, in every city, remember what you're selling to the employee, and tell them, convince them this is really valuable work.
Cutting-edge ideas and real-world results. That was Jonathan Reichental, CIO for the city of Palo Alto. Be sure to subscribe now to catch part 2 of his interview coming soon. I'm Bert Lowry with Springbrook Software, and this has been Civic Leaders. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Civic Leaders is a Springbrook Software Promnicast. Visit sprbrk.com for more. Syndication support is provided by emerging local government leaders. Visit elgl.org for more exclusive content. This series is produced and distributed by the Volsta Media Network. Be sure to check out other great shows, episodes, and more at volsta.com.